will say. My name is James Lloyd, and I want to welcome you today to the Quadrivium discussion, part of the Virtual World's Best Practices in Education conference. The purpose of this discussion is as one of our guests pointed out, it's like a graduate discussion group, a graduate study course. And today we're going to be talking about the topic of ethics in cloud computing. Today we're going to have, I just want to comment that this can become a pretty active session using voice and chat. And so I'm just going to ask, as trying to help with moderation, that you preface in chat with a big Q or a big word question so that I can keep track of those and make sure that we get to each question as we go along. And I'll reread those questions. Just a brief discussion, or brief description of what this session is about is that we're talking about so many applications and repositories are now using the cloud. And so we're looking at the issues, new issues and concerns that arise regarding their security and sustainability over time. Our host today is ElizabethWallington, and Elizabeth is an adjunct professor in real life with a Bachelor of Arts, a Master of Arts, a Master's of Business Administration, and a Master, what's an MSED, Elizabeth?
Masters of Education.
Oh, Master's of Education. Excellent.
Right, Science of Education.
Also has a USAB Small Business Administration Certified Business Advisor and Counselor, a Charter Management Institute certificate, has worked with the International Institute for Research, the UAE, in the United Arab Emirates. Is that correct, Elizabeth?
Yes.
And she is also formerly with AT&T Bell Laboratories, a modest player in the in the online internet world. So, without any further ado, Elizabeth, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you very much, James. The patter of feet and the swishing sound, as I have told those who already arrived, are the background sounds from my cats, and I ask you to kind of overlook those. Thank you very much for the introduction. A couple of housekeeping tasks, if all of you would please take note. Number one, because we have this becoming into notes, we have a transcriptionist, so I'm going to ask you to please speak slowly. Please speak as clearly as possible. In addition to that, we have several languages, so please make sure that you're enunciating as clearly as possible so that all here can understand. Point number two, because we have this being recorded and because we have so many people who I am sure will want to participate, please keep your responses with time in mind. Come right to the point, and please avoid talking over other people. That becomes very garbled. As a result, both the recordings as well as the transcriptions get very difficult. You're making fun. That's all right. I translated it from German. So, back to the very beginning of all of this. I put up an interesting slide, and I'm going to ask you to look at this, if you would. How old is the cloud? Throw out some ideas to me. How old is this whole thing that we're saying is the cloud? When did this start? 1980? When did it begin? When did the concept of the cloud, hear me carefully, the concept of the cloud, when did that start? Anybody have any ideas? Nobody? You're all asleep? You all need more coffee? So we have 1980. Yes, on the coffee. The concept is much older, yes. Beginning of the ARPANET in 1969. ARPANET was really interesting, but believe it or not, it's before that time. Are you ready for this? You're going to gasp. And Mook is laughing for us. And what in the world am I talking about? Why so late? Well, how about so far back, Edith? So, when we talk about the cloud, we're talking about shared communications. The essence of the cloud is that we are using mechanics of some degree and some complexity to interchange all kinds of information. Now, there are implications in that that are huge and very, very much pointing to ethics. So, I hope you can see this. I probably should have put it in larger font.
That looks good to me, Elizabeth.
Good. If not, cam in on the slide. There are two concepts that we're talking about, and I think we need to make sure that we can tie both of these concepts together for the discussion purposes. So what are ethics? Ethics basically are an agreement amongst us, or as much as possible, of the concept of right or wrong behaviors. What is acceptable? What is not? So when we come back to the cloud, one of the things that we note about the cloud is that it has some issues. This is our modern concept of the cloud. Take a look at the tags on that, if you will. Those that have a green plus sign indicate what the cloud does well. And of course, now we're talking about cloud computing. When we talk about cloud computing, we're talking about enabled massive communication. It is not just on your computer. It is not just on your mobile devices. It is omnipresent, and it is global. So what are the things that are pluses for cloud computing in particular? We're talking scale and cost. You don't have to go out and buy a whole lot of software anymore. We're talking encapsulated change management. A lot of words to just say, you don't have to do the updates. And if you went through the Windows 10 update and are still in pain from that, you know why this is kind of a good thing. Next generation architectures. You don't have to be concerned about this doesn't work anymore. I used to be on XP. Now I'm supposed to be in everything compatible with Windows 10, not in XP. So platforms, architectures, you don't have to worry about that. Your choices and agility to change, very easy to do. But do take a look at the minuses. So here's where the issues come in. Security. You are no longer secure in the cloud. And in fact, for those of you who read the Huffington Post, there's an article today on the Federal Trade Commission and how they will be interacting with the federal communications so that we no longer allow our ISPs, which all of us have to have, to determine what private information they can take from us. Goes to what we're talking about today. We no longer have control over a lot of things. All right, Anna says I'm a little loud. I'm going to turn this down. Let me know if it gets too soft for you. Is that a little better, Anna? You shoot me and let me know. And reliability. It's not something that we can make sure that, yes, it's plugged in, yes, my power is on. That's out of our hands. In addition to that, we're locked in. There are choices that we can't make. So there are the pros, there are the cons, and let me point to one that is especially prevalent in the news in the past month. Everybody know what this is? I think you do.
Thinking about that.
Correct. I don't know why that picked up. So, bottom line to it, we know now that there are issues that will crop up with companies that own the massive server farms. Hang on a second, Dana just sent me something.
All these channels of communication coming from the cloud.
Yes, they are, and that's the most amazing thing about it. It's quite interesting. So we have always got in the cloud, we have a spot on the ground where things are taking off, communications are taking off, and a spot someplace else that we have designated where they will land. Now, in getting from takeoff to landing, things happen. Think of an airplane trip. Things happen. What kinds of things, ethically, can happen in the cloud that we have to decide this is really good, this is really not very good? What are acceptable behaviors and what are not? That's what I'd like you to actually start talking about. Now that we have agreement, yeah, terrorists can board a plane. Terrorists can also get into the web. Terrorists can also get into the cloud. Go ahead, take off on that. Divulge proprietary secrets? Yes, because we're repositing data in there. What do you mean, Edith? What are these people? Yes, we are depositing. Sometimes we're intentionally depositing information, but think of your ISP. Your ISP is getting a ton of personal information every place you navigate through the internet. Is that good or not good? Wow, Beth, that's interesting.
Yeah, great comment.
So, this is the generation of entitlement in what way, Edith? With entitlement goes risk. Okay? Generation of everybody thinks they own it for themselves. But with entitlement goes risk, and I'm watching you, Bill.
That's right.
With entitlement, there is risk. With entitlement, there is responsibility. Who has what responsibilities?
You're all responsible to act.
Did you see the question from Rhiannon?
I did, and it kind of went by very, very quickly. We're
Yeah,
responsible.
she said, who do you think should access and own your data, your own personal info?
Well, how many of
And
you
that
have
was
that?
that was more a
Yeah,
question for everybody.
yeah, I agree. I agree that it is for everybody. Who should access your personal data and your information?
Why is anything first?
I'm sorry, could you repeat?
I'm typing in. Why is anything personal anymore? Oh my thing is working. I'm sorry for that. Yeah, why do we have a concept of personal data?
Good question. How many of you here, just type in the number one, how many of you here use Facebook?
Business.
Okay? Never use Facebook. Gentle Heron, do me a favor. Could you share with us why you don't? Why not use it?
I know I don't use it for personal as of drama. Sorry, somebody's gonna speak.
Rihanna noted that your social security number or other personal identification data can be on card banks, which can be because of, and that's why I left the slide up. Security in the cloud is porous, which is why we do data encryption. Yes, there is a downside, Rihanna, and you're absolutely right. But we use it. Mook doesn't use it either. Wendy noted, I never share anything on Facebook that I wouldn't want the whole world to see. I assume everyone can see everything, so I never post anything I would consider personal or private.
You know, it's interesting. I had that attitude when I was in the workplace, that anything I did while in the workplace belonged to my employer, but that has come out into our personal lives.
Does everybody know about the issue with Apple versus the United States FBI?
Hmm.
Who doesn't know?
Edith doesn't know. Whoever she is, needing more coffee, she doesn't know.
Basically, in a nutshell, our United States Federal Bureau of Investigation wanted Apple to open the door, as Rhiannon had said, to locked phones for anybody who the FBI, wanted to investigate for criminal behaviors. They were citing the couple in California who went in and opened fire on an aggregate of people who worked for the local government and murdered several. Bottom line, the FBI determined that, as in all criminal investigations, there should be an ability to see who else knew about this in advance or coordinated with it. Could this type of incident be stopped? Could they more quickly locate perpetrators if communications device companies like Apple gave them full access? What do you think? Yes, I agree, Wendy. It has happened with BlackBerry, and that was the precedent. Yes, I agree. This is not new. Just like the idea and the concept of the cloud is not a new thing.
Well, even before you had the cloud, you still had criminals murdering people over information. I mean, let's think about the Cold War and Russia and communists versus democracy. You still had that before you even had the cloud. How did we deal with it then? And is it still appropriate to deal with it that way now?
I think Origin just nailed kind of a bit of it when he said, was there a search order issued or a search warrant? In the United States, that's due process of law. Was that actually done? Yes, I agree. Rihanna said it opens a slippery slope, not to just those within the government or police, but once that code or ability is out there, it allows anybody to get into those.
And the other problem is they actually changed the Apple ID, which allowed them to not be able to even access it. So the officials themselves kind of messed themselves up.
And you said it's been a way of demeaning security on networks because it's often giving into the hands of hacking principles. How many of you here know what hacking is or have been the victim of hacking? Oh, okay. So what are the hackers looking for? Are they looking for personal information on us? Yes, CCTV was used in public places, correct. And it came up with the credit card companies often.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're talking about ethics, this is right or wrong behavior. How many of you monitor your own behavior as right or wrong while using the cloud? 1 for yes, I do. I monitor my behavior. 2 for no. I can put anything in there. What behaviors do you monitor ethically as an individual?
That's me.
Anybody got some examples? What you share? Edith says what she shares.
I don't have it? Oh, didn't you get it from Becky?
Yes, with kids.
She gave it to us. And then we put a picture on
Being
it.
nice to people.
And we put a picture
that's
on it.
something you really have to even consider.
Probably you weren't
The
around.
ethics of how you
Probably you
speak
were not
to
around.
other human beings. You're a human being behind the avatar. It's a very nice
Yeah.
looking avatar, but you're
It's funny,
human
isn't
back
it?
there somewhere.
I
Everything
agree.
we have right way of communicating on this cloud, on or off it, humans.
Bill brought up the example of student records being kept out of the cloud. Actually, Bill, I work for a tech company and we access everything out of the National Student Database, and it is a private company. So is that open? Yes. But like with HIPAA, there is something called FERPA, which is students. That's an encryption. Now that is the main reason. Is that for individual student data, Bill asked? Yes, it is. FERPA, F-I-R-P-A, is the same thing as HIPAA. It says that it is encrypted data. And yes, Lori Vaughn is absolutely correct. It's too easy to
I'm transcribing.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Do
I
a
thought
very
you were
good job
throwing
on
in
it too.
Yeah, and I thought you were throwing in an opinion. Anybody else have an opinion on what is your own individual ethics requirement that you obviously have to put on yourself when you're using the cloud? Not sharing personal. How about this? How many of you read the agreement when you first launch into using a new cloud-based application? How many of you read that through?
I sure don't.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And what can be the result?
Well, it's a legal contract. I mean, they can
Yes.
probably, take anything. Of course, with me, there's not much to take,
You
so
gonna work
they
out
can
today?
have it, whoever they are.
No.
I like that. Yes, it was a South Park episode, Origin. It was a really humorous one in many ways.
I forgot.
Bits of the agreement. If you're not an expert on cyber law, actually it's more contract law than anything else, but you're right. So
Megan was
companies that are operating on the cloud are offering you information about how your information that they're gathering will be used.
after spending like 4 hours.
Is that ethical behavior on their part?
I'm like, yeah, it's
They are stating it up front, so that is certainly a gray area. It's not in
7
black
a.m.
and white.
our time. And I was like, that's
Is it
fine.
ethical behavior?
Make it. And then we checked the schedule.
They're covering their
It's
butts,
actually 8.
Yeah, by the letter of the
Jack
law.
said.
Becky and I were here at
If
Mhm.
they're in
She was
business
already in there.
and they're saying we're going to make profit off of this, but they're in business to do it and they're saying it, is it
This one's an
ethical?
interesting one though.
That's a good
Computing
question.
and security. So,
And that's why Origin just asked, is it legal versus is it ethical? We would hope that most legal decisions are also ethical, and yet that's a debate in itself. So we're going to let Origin schedule a debate on what's the difference between ethics and legality.
One, he can do that in the library that we were talking about yesterday.
I like Jack's comment, quote, on a high-level cloud executive, oh, grow up. I think that there's one more thing that we have to talk about, and that's the ethics of the companies that are supplying all of the space on the cloud. Is there anybody here that does not understand what the, let's call them mechanics are that make the cloud function? Is there anybody here that is unsure how it all works? Okay, Mook says him. Anybody else? And yes, that's a very good point. We're not forced to accept anything. Okay, Gentle Heron would appreciate a review. James says it's a series of tubes. And yes, you're right, Wendy. In choosing your ISP, you're usually looking for price, availability, other conditions other than security or ethical behavior.
I don't think that's
Well, you also talk about sharing of content. The cloud exists for the upload and the download of something. Whether it's money or it's information or art or a coffee.
Okay, so let me go back to the slide that I had up here before. How old is the cloud? And I said to you, it was 1878. Where did I come up with that date?
What happened that year?
Oh, I've got a long list.
Oh,
Bell Labs didn't exist yet.
printing?
Printing had already existed. That goes back to Gutenberg.
Right.
ARPANET,
Telegraph?
ARPANET came later. Movable type, yes, Rhiannon. The census was already in place, Jack.
Yeah, telegraph.
Ah, the
Print
telegraph,
quadrivium.
believe it or not, was already 100 years old.
Yeah, the telephone?
Charlie Babbage, I love it. Yes, Rhiannon's right about that. The Dutch ran the first steam engine in 1878. And yes, the telegraph was already present in France in the 1700s.
Let me take a look.
Isn't that amazing? So what happened? What we had was the first network of telephones. We had by mid-year,
Yes.
we had over 50 subscribers in a network between New York and Connecticut. This was the first year that a telephone directory was published. So people from one side could pick up a telephone receiver, place a call, and they had no idea how it happened. They didn't need to know any more than I need to know how my car runs. I trust my mechanic for that. But the call got delivered to the intended receiver, the person they were trying to contact. In between, that network operated to facilitate that communication from one point to another. Right now, we don't use telephone numbers we can, on the cloud. What do we use?
Skype.
Well, Skype has an address and a phone number behind it. What is it that you have, each one of you? Yes, you have an Internet Protocol address. From one side to another. Can you imagine a telephone book with all the IP addresses in the world?
Oh, I'm sure there is one. Does the CIA have something?
Listen, I got dizzy standing on a Chicago area telephone book. I don't think I want to stand on the world's IP telephone book.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, when we take a look at the cloud, it is being enabled. And you're sure the CIA has all the addresses? I agree. Either they do or the
NCIS.
yeah, the CIS. Yeah. So back to this whole definition on the cloud. What we have is an ability to transfer communication along a series of networks.
No, not really.
Those networks can be solely owned, leased,
You
or rented.
have been encouraged.
You all pay in one way or another for your ISP. Wouldn't it be nice if it were free? Jack is laughable. You can go ahead, Edith. He's a funny guy. In the meantime, there are mechanical devices that are going to enable all of this.
I kind of
In
like
some
this live
cases,
stream
we
thing, though.
want to store information. If we want to store information, how many of you are storing information on the cloud right now?
I
Show
am.
hands. 1, yes, I'm storing information on the cloud. 2, nope, I don't store anything on the cloud.
Thank God for the cloud.
Believe it or not, just being here right now, the fact that you are here is being stored on the cloud, probably in multiple places by multiple companies. Is that a scary thing to you?
No. Should it be?
Aha. Jack Bauer and Chloe. Actually, less time than an hour, Origin. So should it be scary? Yes, metadata is actually data about data, and we consolidate data into larger compartments, if you will. Think about it as there is a drawer, and that drawer is probably part of a dresser or probably part of a chest of drawers. So data is contained inside of metadata. Data is a drawer. It's contained inside of something else that has many drawers. So, are we going to have metadata on the cloud? In other words, your data is part of a bigger set of data. And Bill's waving to the CIA. Hey, Bill, how do you feel about that? That any government agency can look at your data in the cloud? And NSA, yes. Nitro's right. What do you mean of two minds? Ah, and Jack brings up the point and says, wait a minute, we trust the word of agencies that they are only analyzing the metadata. That's in the geek world, we call that big data. And how do we deal with it? Okay.
We have always trusted governments and police authorities and military agencies with all sorts of data. What makes this any different?
Is there anything that you would not want other people to know about in general that you have put into your computer or into your smartphone or into your tablet?
Yes, my computer, because I'm working on the dissertation, I have to have IRB approval, and they say that I must keep certain things private. So yes, there is stuff that I don't want shared because I do want that PhD.
Sure Data is saying something else. And of course, one of the things, if it were me and it were my dissertation, I wouldn't want anybody duplicating what I'm researching, all the hours that I'm spending researching. But there was an incident some months back in the United States. There was a website for people, wasn't quite a dating website. It was for people to sign up to have affairs with each other. Sort of submit myself, hi, here's me, here's all about me, and I really want to have an affair.
Just
Now,
recently, there was in the news a case where a teacher was sexting on her phone with her husband. Wife and a husband, you think that's pretty okay. But this phone was stolen by a minor, and he put the stuff onto Facebook. That's a dilemma.
okay. And what about the Ashley Madison breach? Go ahead. Somebody just posted that, and I'm sorry I didn't see. Oh, it was Rhiannon. Rhiannon, tell them a little bit about the Ashley Madison breach.
Oh, maybe that was Marcia that mentioned the Ashley Madison breach?
Yes,
Now,
Marcia
Rhiannon,
mentioned it also, but
Oh,
Rhiannon,
okay.
I had asked Rhiannon if she would describe,
Yeah.
yes, or silence texting, 3GD Jada. So
Ah,
the whole idea behind this is that you have now just made this public. Is that scary to any of you who have been active, having fun here, and I'm putting fun in quotes, here in SL?
Bill, really?
You notice I didn't ask for ones and twos here. But what if this is available to anybody who wanted that information about you?
Well, they can have it. If you go to my profile, it's very easy to find my website, my real name, my real picture, if you can find it online. Everything about me.
But
Why
what
are
if
we
you were
not all that way? Go
What
ahead.
if you were a more sensitive part of a more sensitive population? Say you were gay and you hadn't come out yet to those around you. Say you were transgender and you didn't want to be outed for what gender you might have been born as, or you're part of some domestic violence or sort of other thing. Like there's really sensitive data that you wouldn't want people to ever know or wouldn't want people to get through to.
How would you protect that? Good question.
So let me go back to my slide over here that says, guess what the cloud is not good at? Anybody notice security?
Red.
You can use phone code locks, as Anya suggested. We can encrypt data that is going to be present or used through the cloud. I gave you the example here in the United States with HIPAA encodement. We also have for student data, back to Bill's point, we have FERPA, which is another example of encryption. What's the problem with encryption?
It can be unencrypted.
Ha ha! And Dan
There
Brown
are
has certainly made a reputation on that, hasn't he?
Yeah.
there are programs that will do that.
Correct. Who has the biggest risk in computing in the cloud, even with encrypted data? Yes, Androids have a nice trace pattern. You're absolutely right, Anya.
The targets are the ones who have the biggest risk, and I think you'd be a target and give the most for other people to get, like money. Donald Trump.
Okay. I'm thinking of those emails that I got from somebody in Libya who keeps saying that they're kidnapped and all I need to do is send them $750,000 and they'll repay me within 2 days with a full $1 million. Anybody get those? Send a 1 if you had a yes. Send a 2 if you had a no.
Yeah, but Nigeria.
The Nigerians too. Yes and no. And notice there are no no's. How did they get your email address? For a hamburger today, yes. Origin, is that with or without pickles?
They use the internet phone book.
Ah, that huge internet phone book. And where is that present? Where can anybody find it?
Google.
In the cloud. Google is the big cloud. That's one of them. Amazon is another one. How many of you order from Amazon? 1 for yes, 2 for no. Origin spends his life in Amazon.
Hey, order me some coffee. I'll give you my address.
Elizabeth, I want to mention we have about 5 minutes left.
Yes.
Okay.
What are the ethical issues for each one of you? Think about what your own individual ethics issues are with either yourself or with cloud enablers, companies that have the big server farms that store your data. Where are the biggest ethical issues? With the users or the enablers?
The users. Because they probably don't have as much knowledge about how to protect data, or what should be protected.
Bill says that there's a burden on each, and that each would like that burden to be on the other. Bill, can you explain that? I think that's a valid point. On the audience, because they don't have as much knowledge. Being aware that there is an ethical issue for each of us to consider with our own behaviors. After this discussion, how many of you will rethink how you use the cloud?
Rethink as in do something different? No.
Yes. In terms of the definition of ethics, behaviors are right, behaviors are wrong. I would love to pursue more of internet behavior types of issues, both for the providers and enablers, as well as for the users. How many of you would like to have a discussion on that? One for yes, two for no. We would hope, Edith, that both would be the same. Unfortunately, you're here in SL. You know that they're not.
True, very true. But it should
Thank
be.
you very much, all of you, for attending. I really appreciate your participation. And if you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch with me here in SL. Drop a note card, send me an IM. If there are any further questions that you also have on technologies. Thank you very much for attending. I look forward to hearing from you all, and have a wonderful weekend.
Well, you too, and thank you. You're extremely well spoken.
I'm
Yes,
a
thank you
teacher
so
for
much,
too
Elizabeth.
many decades. This is old hat for me.
Now I
Thank
have
you
to go
all.
work in the cloud.
Yes, indeed.
I have to head to my office. I have to put on my geek hat and be technical again today.
Very good.
We are designing a system right now that will be enabled by the cloud, and it's going to be a fun project. We'll be rolling out the product next year. Nonprofit Commons for Idahoans. Yeah, what a great idea.
Well, Idahoan is actually the region it's in, Nonprofit Commons. It's a community of practice for nonprofits. There's folks from all over the world. So it just happens to be in a region that is called Idahoan. So that's happening right at 7, right up at 8 a.m. So just after this in the Idahoan region. So.
James and Letty and iSky, is there anybody coming to use this area immediately?
Let me see. I can look at the CAD calendar. I don't believe that there is.
Well, then all come on down to Idahoan.
And I'm off to record, so Elizabeth.
Take care, James.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'm surprised nobody brought up when you were talking about licensing about the the Second Life license. And
It was mentioned briefly, the terms of
Was
service,
it?
but
Okay.
yeah, I didn't get into deep. I mean, and Elizabeth, I have to run to that panel that I'm part of, but it would be great to have you even present on these topics at Nonprofit Commons, and I'll ping you in an IM. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right. Ta-ta, everybody.
Thank you for attending. Have a wonderful weekend. I hope the weather where you are is pleasant and there are a lot of fun things to do here in SL. Do check with the LEA SINs, the Linden Endowment for the Arts SINs. There are several that are up and they are wonderful places to visit.
Oh, time moves so fast.
Yes, it does. Isn't it neat?
Yes. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Does anybody have any questions? Bye-bye.